Hello booktube, hello book friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel and another video and another tag video. Still playing catch up on the old tags. This is the Bronte Novel Tag, which is an original tag created by Melinda at a web of stories for her Bronte reading event that's happening in March this month. So it's March on the Moors 2025. And she says this is her original tag to go along with the reading event. To kick off this new reading event, I've put together a little tag to get us thinking about Bronte novels. You don't need to have read any of these novels to participate. That's pretty good because I don't think I've ever read any of the Bronte's novels. I am planning to correct that at some point, but I haven't read any. And also, I will hold my hand up and say I struggled a little bit with finding books to fit the prompts. That's not unusual. I often have to spend a few days thinking about, now what am I going to suggest for this prompt. But this one of them in particular, which I'll get to, and I think that is a bit of a reflection on me and what I read. And I don't mean that necessarily it is a negative comment, but I don't mean it in a negative way. I think that's just the way my reading has developed over the years, and I'm quite happy with, I'm not beating myself up about it, although I think I'm looking at some of the other people who've done this prompt, and I'll talk about it when I get to it, but the prompt in particular, the books they're suggesting for that prompt, I think I might read a few of those. Anyway, Pat at Book Chat with Pat tagged me, so thank you Pat. And let's get started, shall we? Yeah, let's. So the prompts: number 1, Agnes Grey, a book about women in the workforce. Now, this might be a bit of an odd suggestion, but just bear with me for a moment. So my book is A Life in Secrets, which is a biography of Vera Atkins by Sarah Helm. Vera Atkins was fairly senior in the Special Operations Executive in the Second World War, and she was responsible for sending a lot of the female agents into France as messengers, radio operators, all sorts of roles. Now the reason a lot of women were sent, and I think it says, and just double check, it was over 400 sent, and at least 100 of them were reported missing, believed dead. So this biography follows what Vera Atkins did after the war. So as I say, a lot of women were sent because they basically raised less suspicion, because during the Second World War, if you were male and of a certain age, a young man who would otherwise have been called up to serve in the army or the navy or the air force or whatever, if you were wandering around France, you would raise a certain amount of suspicion, because the question would be, well, why aren't you in uniform, or why aren't you serving your country? And so a lot of women were used because that didn't, at least initially during the start of the war, didn't raise the same questions. But a lot of the women were discovered. A lot of the radio operators were discovered purely because they were carrying, radio sets in suitcases, just small suitcases, which if the suitcase was opened, it was fairly obvious that, you know, what that was in there was a radio set. So they were very often either tortured and executed, sent to concentration camps, and towards the end of the Second World War, when the Nazis realised that they were losing, even the ones in the concentration camps, if they were still alive, if they hadn't succumbed to, you know, lack of, you know, if they hadn't succumbed to starvation or illness, were summarily executed. So this book is the biography of what Vera Atkins did after the war, which was she went out to try and find out what happened to those agents who were, you know, missing, presumed dead. You know, some of them were still alive. Many of them weren't. So she tried to bring closure to what happened to them, basically. And it's a fantastic book. It's quite a hard read, as you can imagine, given the subject. But yeah, I don't think they, you know, the women who did that, you know, helped to shorten the length of the Second World War. So, you know, they deserve all the praise that they should get. So yeah, that's my book about women in the workforce. So as I say, a bit of an odd pick, but yeah. Jane Eyre, a coming-of-age novel centred on a female character. This one I had two picks for, both Stephen King books, and you can probably guess what one of them is. So I picked Carrie as my first choice, and then I picked Firestarter, which maybe isn't coming of age quite so much. This is about the daughter of parents who signed up to be experimented on when they were at university with kind of psychedelic drugs. Subsequently, they had they married, had a daughter who developed let's call them pyrotechnical powers that she could control with her mind. And the older she gets, the more prevalent the powers become. So not quite coming of age, but, you know, I thought it was worth including. The Professor, a book by a favourite author that is not your favourite. I've gone for Dick Francis's The Edge. Dick Francis is one of my favourite authors. The Edge is, I still like the book. It's still a good book. It's just not his best. Most of the action takes place on a train, and it, you know, there's, I think, limited scope for telling a story like that. But it's still a good book. Still enjoy it. It fits very well, you know, a book by a favourite author that's not your favourite. So, yeah. This is the one I had problems with. So, prompt number 4, Shirley, a book about female friendship. I really struggled to find anything and I'm going to skip it because I couldn't come up with anything. I think there are lots of books that I have where they have strong female characters, but they're not really about female friendship. So rather than kind of fudge it, I'm going to say no. But I intend to try and, as I say, read some of the books that other people suggest for this prompt, just to maybe, you know, fill that gap a little bit, because I think it is a bit of a gap in my reading, or maybe I'm just not remembering that I've read something really good, and, you know, anyway. But I don't think so. I think it's a gap in my reading knowledge. Prompt number 5, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, a book about someone in a toxic relationship or recovering from a toxic relationship. I had another Stephen King book that I used for a prompt, more or less exactly the same prompt in a separate tag, and that was Christine, which is a toxic relationship featuring a young man and a car. But I'm mentioning it, but I'm putting it to one side because actually I'm going to suggest Shakespeare's Macbeth. And the toxic relationship is between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. I think that's quite a toxic relationship. Ultimately, revolves around various murders and other things nefarious that happen during the course of the play. So yeah, that's my choice for toxic relationship. Prong number 6, Villette, a book about a character in a new land. I'm going for science fiction because often science fiction features new lands. And I'm going for Arthur C. Clarke's Rendezvous with Rama. And I don't want to say too much. If you've not read this book, I don't know whether it says it on the back of the... No. You need to read the book to understand. Rama is basically a massive cylinder that appears in our solar system. Nobody knows where it's come from. Nobody really knows where it's going. Nobody knows what its purpose is. Nobody knows what's inside. So yeah, so that's my pick for a character in a new land. And then 7, Wuthering Heights, a book where a house or other building plays a major role. And I've gone for another one of my favourite authors, and a castle of the Eagles, the Schloss Adler in Where Eagles Dare by Alistair MacLean. If you've never read this, or you've never seen the Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood film, I thoroughly recommend the film if you don't want to read the book. But it's very classic. I don't know if it's 60s or 70s kind of war movie. One of those movies where the guns never run out of bullets and things like that. But yeah, that's my pick. Where Eagles Dare, the Schloss Adler, Castle of the Eagles, is the building that plays a major role. It centres around a rescue attempt by a team of commandos trying to break into the seemingly impregnable castle to rescue a Allied general who has been captured and being kept there. But that's only part of the story. There is more to the story than meets the initial introduction. So yeah, that's Where Eagles Dare by Alistair MacLean. And then prompt number 8, tag some people. I will tag some people down in the comments. I think if I need to look and see who's already been tagged, and pick some different people if I can. So thank you for watching. If you have been, thank you for Pat for tagging me. Thank you to Melinda for creating the tag, and very best of luck with March on the Moors for 2025. And I will speak to you again soon. Take care now. Bye bye.